gonna be like a book club, but for TED Talks. Well, I'm just gonna pull that up. Hey friends, it's your good friend Tim Campbell-Smith, and today we are talking about some TED Talks I highly recommend you watch to talk about mental health. There's a bunch of different lists out on the internet of recommended TED Talks on different topics. I think my list is a little unusual because there's very different TED Talks from very different corners of the internet that I think highlight some really awesome perspectives on mental health. Please note, all the videos I'm going to talk about are linked below, and I am not including Brene Brown in any of the videos for today. It's such an obvious choice. A lot of people, equate Brene Brown with mental health. So if you want to learn about mental health, you can go find Brene Brown stuff on the TED Talks as well. Before we go too far, make sure you like and subscribe for all things mental health, business, life, school, you name it. Today I'm going to recommend 7 videos. This video is going to be pretty short because I want you to spend more time going to watch those TED Talks. None of them are terribly long, relatively speaking, compared to other TED Talks. So let's dive in. The first video, and I'm going to read each of the titles to make sure I get it right. The first video that I highly recommend is called When We Cry, Mental Health, Masculinity, and Male Identity. And the speaker on this is James Wilkerson. I love that this came from what we may attribute to like a traditionally masculine male, like really a guy's guy giving the talk, and had some really cool cultural references that made it very relevant. I liked that this provided some other and unique perspectives on what can impact mental health, and in particular, the speaker really encourages us to think wider and deeper, to think about like, what are all the different things in your own head that may be impacting your mental health? But also, are there wider things? Are there societal factors affecting your mental health? And just larger scale things that maybe aren't immediately in your control, that take time to finagle and to find your way through. So I highly recommend that as the first TED Talk. When We Cry, Mental Health, Masculinity, and Male Identity. This is for you guys. The second video I recommend, I'm so passionate about a bunch of different and weird reasons. It's called Mental Health in Schools, We're Doing It Wrong, with Maya Dawson. So let's actually talk about why I love this. 2 words, preventative measures. So much of mental health care and mental health discussions are reactive. It's how we handle it after the fact, after we've faced the adversity, after we've faced the trauma, and after that wound has already started to settle somewhere in our psyche. This TED Talk has an excellent, and it's a very short discussion. This one's less than 7 minutes long, about how most mental health care is responsive, but also provides just a few different ways that it can be preventative, that we can be proactive, so that we're tackling our mental health and our resiliency and our well-being first, before always having to respond to when harm has been done. And a great place to illustrate that is in schools. The third video I highly recommend is titled I'm Fine, Learning to Live with Depression with Jake Tyler. I loved this video because it had really great everyday videos that we could relate to. Oftentimes when we talk about mental health, it's so high level, it's so abstract that it doesn't make sense to us and it's kind of hard to like relate to. This video makes it really, really relatable, especially because often when we talk about especially depression, bipolar disorder, and other more serious mental health concerns, the stories are usually very dramatic. And we don't always need dramatic stories to talk about mental health. Mental health isn't always dramatic. This TED Talk does a really great way of normalizing it and just showing what mental illness and depression can look like in our daily lives and how we can live more fruitfully and happier, healthier lives. I also thought that this video had some really great probing questions, and the speaker, Jake Tyler, shared some really excellent questions to get us to reflect on. I know I'm probably not supposed to have favorites when it comes to these TED Talks. This is in my top 2 favorite TED Talks on mental health. The other one, the next video we watch, is going to be my favorite. But I love this TED Talk, Mental Health for All by Involving All, by Vikram Patel. Oftentimes, mental health and mental health care is fiercely individualistic, at least here in the West, Canada, the US. And other parts of the world really get it right in having a community focus. And I think in mental health, we need more of a community focus, that it isn't just all about self-care. Community care is important as well. This is also based on, in this talk by Vikram Patel, that a lot of our mental health solely relies on psychiatrists, psychologists, and classically trained professionals with graduate degrees. But mental health care does not have to only belong to people with graduate degrees. I often compare like mental health and mental illness to common everyday injuries. If I scratch myself and I get a scrape and there's a cut and bleeding, I don't need a doctor every single time. I have enough wisdom and knowledge from all the people around me, and often we learn from our parents that like when you have a cut, clean it out so that it doesn't get infected, put a Band-Aid over it so that no other things can get in there to infect it and so that it can heal. Why don't we have that in mental health care, where things happen and we have conventional wisdom and knowledge around us to heal from those things? This talk addresses that in a really brilliant way and with some cool case studies. TED Talk number 5 that I recommend, and this is probably my one of, if not my favorite TED Talk on mental health. It's called What's So Funny About Mental Illness by Ruby Wax. If y'all haven't learned yet, I'm a big person on humor. I love to laugh. I love the joy that comes with laughter. And Ruby Wax does a great way of weaving humor into our discussions of mental health. I think this highlights the need for humor in mental health so that we don't take it so seriously. And if you watch the TED Talk, you see that the humor comes from honesty and comes from appreciating the whole picture of mental health. So there is space for humor, there is need for humor, and there's a beautiful life lesson to learn in looking at the whole thing. So I highly recommend What's So Funny About Mental Illness by Ruby Wax. TED Talk number 6 that I recommend on mental health is titled Why Students Should Have Mental Health Days Too by Haley Hardcastle. I think this is so important, one, because it goes against a narrative that I was brought up with, and please comment below if your parents ever gave you this, but my parents always told me through all of my school years, even in my first year of university, they said, you're in the easiest years of your life. This is easy. Nothing should be hard. You should have nothing to be sad about because everything in your life is so easy. And that's not always true. That's not actually the case. I love that this goes against that narrative that some people have it easier than others and therefore shouldn't need mental health days, when in fact we all need mental health days. Everyone is deserving, even those we don't consider deserving, like maybe students. Everyone needs mental health days. The final TED Talk I want to recommend is rather unconventional compared to any other TED Talk and any other TED Talk I've recommended today, and that is The Danger of Silence by Clint Smith, who, part of his work, he's a spoken word poet, so it's a very short TED Talk. It's only about 4 minutes long, a little over 4 minutes, and it's kind of delivered like it's spoken word poetry, but it is still a talk. It doesn't feel like he's lecturing at you or really putting on a performance. It still feels very honest. It's short, it's sweet. What I really love about this and The Danger of Silence is that it calls into question with our mental health what we don't talk about and what we leave in silence and what happens when we leave things in the silence. So when I watched this TED Talk, and again, you can watch it very quickly, after watching it, my first question was to myself, and this is the question for you that I want to pose to you after watching this TED Talk: why didn't you say the things you wanted to say? That's not an accusation. It should be more a point of reflection to figure out what are the barriers that stop us from speaking out and speaking up. And that's really touched upon in a beautiful way in this TED Talk. And that's my 7 TED Talks that I recommend you watch and interact with on mental health. None of them, again, terribly long, but please comment and let me know. Do you have any TED Talks that you recommend? Maybe some that I've missed or you think touch on other topics? As always, make sure you like and subscribe for all things mental health, business, school, and life. Otherwise, we'll chat soon. Bye for now.